It's Serene with Serene Properties back here on another beautiful Sunday morning for this week's episode. And I have a beautiful special guest with me today. Her name is Ida, and she is with Closing Solutions Escrow. She's going to talk to us about escrow today. Welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm really excited to talk about escrow. There's so many aspects to it.
I know. And escrow is one of the most important things that are going to happen in a real estate transaction, but a lot of people have no idea what it is or why we would open escrow. Like, are we opening a jar? No, we're opening escrow. And once your offer gets accepted, you're working with us, we get you a house, and you're happy, right? You called us at 1-800-440-7566, or you found me on Instagram and you DM'd me and was like, hey, I want to buy a house, right? And my Instagram, CYRENE Properties, you DM'd me and you wanted to buy a house, right? Now, because I do what I do so well, we are opening escrow. So you put an offer on a house, right? And then what happens is you have escrow. Can you give us kind of like a very simple explanation of what escrow is and what they do?
Yeah, I'd love to. You know, a lot of people, because it's a crazy word, we don't really use it often in English. Escrow is just a holding company. We're a neutral party and we are the center of the transaction so that we can help everybody. And we don't play favorites to anybody. We're just in the middle, making sure that everybody plays their part so that we can distribute what everybody needs.
Okay. Now, when you are working with escrow, do you represent the buyer or do you represent the seller?
We don't represent anybody. We're completely neutral. We are just in the middle of the whole transaction. So we do service our sellers, we service our buyers, but we are completely neutral.
Okay. So before anything can happen, you have to have instructions from both parties?
We do, and that is usually starts with the contract that you guys write up, and it is a contract that has also included in there instructions to open up escrow. So when we take a look at that, it's very important that it's spelled out with all the terms that you guys are going to have during your transaction, and that's the key that we follow. The names on the contract are the names that we use for to open up escrow, and that's what we start using for vesting as well.
What is vesting?
Well, vesting is how you're going to hold your name in the papers. So if you wanted to have John Smith and Mary Smith and joint tenancies, or how you want to actually have the names appear on your deeds.
Now, are you able to explain to clients when they're trying to choose how to hold title, are you able to give them advice on how to do that, or do you just have to kind of explain what it is?
Well, typically we're not allowed to. Well, we're not allowed to. We're allowed to show you the difference of how to hold vesting. There's a paper that explains it. But before you do come into the escrow officer, we actually send you what we call an opening packet. That opening packet will ask a lot of questions. It'll ask for your names, different names that appeared with you, your social, lots of things like that. But it also will explain in that packet that how to hold title and your vesting.
Okay. So when you say how to hold title, and I just, I'm kind of trying to simplify things because I know we have a wide array of listeners.
Yeah.
When you say how to hold title, like what does that mean?
Well, let me explain it to you. I try to use my parents as an example always, because when I started in real estate, I was 7 and I had to translate.
7?
So, 7. Can you believe it? Yeah. Child labor.
I guess.
Yeah, it was bad, but good at the same time.
So I do it to my kids too.
We do.
My kids know what escrow is.
Yeah, escrow. So my parents, they were married. They bought their first home here in Venice, and when they bought it, they had to choose how to hold it. Now, it's very important that they chose correctly, and my parents chose to hold joint tenancy with survivorship rights, which meant if one of them passed away, the other person would get the property without paying taxes towards the other portion of the property. So it's important that you really do talk to your CPA, that you understand this. Some people in second marriages choose to have joint tenancy without survivorship rights because they want to give their kids, which were not part of the marriage, their half of the home and not give the other half to the other kids. So it really depends on the situation. You really want to think that over. It's very important that you actually decide these things before you go to an escrow company so that you have that all decided.
Yeah, and the escrow company can always explain to you what those different things are, because I'm sure at the beginning when you're buying a house, the last thing you're thinking about is how I'm going to hold title. But And holding title means like whose name is on the deed of the house
Exactly.
and how that is going to be distributed in the event that you pass away or something terrible happens.
Yeah, and a lot of people will first put it into their own names and then transfer it over to a trust because that's how they hold their title. So there are many ways.
And can escrow help you do that when you're buying the house? Can you guys help with transferring it into the trust after you record in their name?
Most companies will let you do it. A title company is actually going to be the one that's going to help you. As soon as it goes into recording, they record it right afterwards so that it just does it at the same time.
So would it be safe to say that you're kind of like a hub?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. If you could just imagine an octopus with a big head and 8 arms, and those 8 arms are touching the buyer, the seller, the lender, the title. All of those things kind of happen with one person in charge, and they make sure that everything gets to the right person at the right time.
Yes, you guys, make sure you get a great agent who uses a great escrow company because I have had some escrow nightmares and we don't want that. Now, when you're buying a house, oftentimes the seller is the one who gets to choose who the escrow company is. So sometimes we just have to trust that your agent, me, is gonna have that, is gonna know everything that escrow is supposed to be doing. So I know when they're screwing up. And we wanna make sure we're on top of them, just like we would be on top of the lender and everybody else. So one of the big things though for escrow is they are so important because they're talking to the lender, getting all the instructions from the lender, making sure that the lender's sending the money on time. They're talking to the buyer, making sure the earnest money deposit came in when it was supposed to come in. They're coordinating with me and the other agent, making sure that we filled out our paperwork. They order the natural hazard disclosure reports. They order the title reports. They draw up your grant deed. They coordinate with title to make sure everything gets recorded. Like, you guys do a lot of stuff.
We do. We have to hold a lot of balls up in the air while we're juggling one escrow. You're absolutely right. I also wanted to mention, I know that you guys have people listening from all over the place. In other locations, they call escrow cases. California, we don't use attorneys, so we use an escrow company, and that's why we have the job that we do. Northern California does it a little bit differently. They like to include title and escrow all with the same person. We do it separately here, so there are 2 different types of people that you communicate with. We just had somebody from Texas who closed a deal with us, and she kept asking questions, so it's a little different from state to state, but I wanted to explain that even within our state, it's a little different. So knowing that you have the right real estate agent is so important because they can actually see if something is going wrong or where to stop it to make sure that we're doing our job correctly.
Yep. We're your gatekeepers, guys. We're your protectors.
Yeah.
Making sure that everything is going like it's supposed to so that you don't feel stressed out. That was last week's episode. So, is escrow highly regulated?
Very.
How hard is it to open an escrow company?
Extremely hard. You have to get very high insurance. You have to have a broker of record. They actually monitor it. Every file has to end with a 0 set. We're not allowed to keep anything. So if there's ever extra charges that we're charged, we have to make sure it goes back to whoever it is. What you'll find when you first open escrow, you can ask what they call a net sheet. One is a buyer's net sheet and the other one's a seller's net sheet, which actually breaks down the cost from everybody on there, including your taxes, things like that. What you'll find is sometimes they'll even charge you for fees that you think, oh, I'm not going to use a FedEx for anything. I live in town. Well, they actually include those fees on that net sheet just to make sure that there's enough money there so that you're not hit with something on the back end. So I know that you're really great about explaining those net sheets, and I know that you're always taking those, and if you have to revise them, you're great about getting them as well.
Yeah, one thing I always ask escrow is I say, before we close or before we go, to the closing table, I want the net sheet and I want to review it before it goes to my client, because especially if I'm dealing with a different escrow other than my own, I'm checking and making sure that the fees that are being charged on there are fair and reasonable, and that the other little miscellaneous charges are, removed if possible. Some escrow companies nickel and dime you. Like, they will charge you a document fee. They'll charge you
prepping.
They'll charge you everything, which is why I love being at Keller Williams Central so much. My office is amazing. I love everyone there. And, we have a great team leader, we have a great infrastructure, and we have a great escrow company. I've gone through a lot of escrow companies, and, sometimes they're really good at the beginning and then they kind of start falling off. But as far as our closing solutions escrow goes, I have been super, super happy. So if you guys are, thinking of like, maybe you're a new agent, you're thinking of joining a great office with a great infrastructure, great team, give me a call, 1-800-440-7566. Let's talk about getting you into Keller Williams Central. Let's talk about getting you on a team. Let's talk about getting you productive and getting you some listings so you can get them in escrow with our amazing escrow officers. So speaking of which, people have a lot of questions, right? So I'm gonna break off just for a second and go into a little segment where we get to check my voicemails. So you guys call, you ask questions. I love answering your questions. I love helping you out with this process. And right now we're gonna answer a question from Jeremy. So Jeremy is saying, hi Serene, I live here in LA and am a first-time home buyer. I want to buy property, but the market here in Los Angeles is so expensive. Amen, Jeremy. I was thinking of buying an investment property out of state. Is that a bad move for my first property? Thank you, Jeremy. Well, it depends. So I don't have a yes or no answer for you, Jeremy. It does depend on your life situation right now. Like if you have a family and you have kids and you need to move into a house, then maybe that's not the best thing for you. But if you're like a single guy who's just thinking, you know what, I'm gonna start here. I have a friend who her brother started buying stuff in Georgia and was flipping stuff out there, and he was very successful doing that. So it depends on how much money you have. And at the end of the day, what's important is if you're going to decide to buy an investment property as your first property, that you do your research on investment properties and you know what it is that you're supposed to be getting back. So you want to make sure that, okay, is it a good investment, right? That's what you really want to know. Is this going to be a good investment? And I'm able to refer you to agents in other states who can help you walk through that process. You can just call me. You have my number, but I'm going to say it again, 1-800-440-7566. If you're thinking of buying out of state, give me a call. I can refer you to an amazing agent out there. And that way we make sure that you're taken care of and that you're buying the right investment property and not something that's going to end up being an experience that you regret. Okay, so back to escrow. So does escrow cost the buyer money or the seller money? Like who pays for it?
So they each have their own cost. And that can actually be negotiated by your realtor. I know that you're extremely great about making sure that you find the best savings for either side. So all of it's negotiable, but it is paid. Each of them have their own cost to escrow.
So escrow fees are negotiable?
Well, no, they're negotiable when you're talking to the other person, maybe buyers. And I know that you've done this before, asking for non-recurring closing costs. The buyer's agent who's savvy will see if they can get you guys a credit for those types of costs that only come up one time.
So, because I know I've asked for discounts lots of times for myself and for my clients, and I know escrow just loves it. But hey, you know what? I love you guys, but I love my clients more. So
she's not kidding.
What's this $30 FedEx fee? Get rid of this now. Yeah. So, but how much does escrow cost typically?
Well, it's funny you ask. It's by thousands. So there's a little booklet, and we actually have it figured out. There's a dollar set by the thousands. So after you get past the million, we could probably cut you a really good deal, especially like Jeremy. It's expensive here now. So bigger prices are coming up. So when you do take a look at it, in fact, you know what is the current cost? I'm pretty sure it's.
I know the current cost. It's $250 base fee plus $2.50 per thousand. So what that means is if your property is $100,000, it's going to be $250 plus the $250. So it's going to be $500 to do escrow. Now, is there a minimum amount that you guys will charge?
So,
like, what if I'm buying a $50,000 mobile home?
Actually, you know what? We don't do mobile homes at ours, but you can, and
but
there is a flat rate.
But just as an example.
I'm not sure what the going rate is for the escrow for a mobile home. I would love to know, but I do know that they do charge you a flat rate. It's usually about $1,000, and it's not much more than that. So,
yeah, most escrow companies, in my experience, will not go under a certain amount because it's still the same work, whether it's a $1 million house or a $50,000 property, the process is still the same. Mobile homes are a little different, and that maybe is a whole nother show we talk about. But usually they're not going to take below a certain amount because they do have to do the work.
You're absolutely right. And also, I think most of you who own a home right now have refied also experience the escrow.
Yep.
And they do have flat rates for that as well. So there are companies that only do refis. We don't. We just do the selling for commercial and property, and that's really it. We don't do mobile homes either. So I apologize.
No, don't apologize. It's fine.
Yeah.
So, escrow is just so important. There's so many things you guys do. And I'm sure you, just like I, have met some different people and some characters and had some interesting deals happen. Do you have maybe like a good story for us, like a funny story, or just something that maybe a nightmare, or just something that happened that our listeners can get a kick out of?
Wow. During escrow, I think you find that we get to do the signings, and sometimes if there's a divorce going on, you find out that they're not going to do it together. So then you have to do it separately, and sometimes you have to revisit them. So I have to say the divorcees are probably the most amusing to me because they come in for therapy sessions.
Yes.
Well, did he sign this? Did she sign this?
And with questions.
Why did they do this? And is she going to pay for that, or am I going to pay for that? And now you're having 4 different conversations about the same thing with different people. So I think that we get to see it all. We've had people come in who have changed their names and forget to bring the old names with them. So then we have to explain to them that they have to go in front of a judge and change their name corrected so that we can actually sign them off. And it's quite amusing because they think, well, it's me. We can't take your word. I have done a signing for escrow in the back of a car, though. This is true story. The true story. They said, hey, he can't make it to your office. I said, well, we can go to him. Oh, wait, he says he wants to have a car ride, but you'll have to do the signing in the back of the car. I said, the back of the car? Because of his oxygen tanks and everything else. So I did do a signing from the back seat to the front seat. That was probably the craziest signing I've ever had. And that was a gentleman who then passed away 2 weeks later, and they all came back in to redo the paperwork because of the trust.
Oh my gosh.
So I
Wow.
really didn't have to be in the back seat for that one. But yeah, it was fun.
I've actually done a purchase contract in the front seat of a car.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
Real estate, we're mobile.
We are mobile. He was like, hey, I have 20 minutes. Can we meet in the Starbucks parking lot? And I was like, sure, why not? Let's do this. You gonna sign? I'm there.
Yeah. I do recall when it was interest rates were at 12%. We were writing offers on the hood of cars, just trying to get the house before somebody else did. That was before
12%, guys.
Yeah, it was only a 2-page contract back then.
12%. And now they're like between maybe 2.5, 3.5, depending on your life story and your credit and everything. But imagine, and I know when I bought my first house, I think the rates were like 6%, and that was good.
Yeah,
That was good. And now people are like, oh, it's 3%. What's going on? Guys, it's like free money. Why do you think everyone's trying to buy?
yeah. But I would say that if you have a chance, do talk to your clients, making sure that they actually have it all looked at, all their escrow. And if they do need some kind of a discount, please ask. If we can figure out where we can cut some cost here or there, we're going to help you. We want to make sure that you get into that house. With escrow, we're always constantly talking to title, so we're usually the ones who give the bad news also out if there's something holding there, like if there's solar panels that we need to get cleared off, if there's judgments, liens, child support. We usually get to give the bad news out to everybody. So just make sure that you have somebody like Serene working for you, because she really does look over what we call a preliminary report, which actually will show if it's got any of these things. So I know that she's always on top of it, calling them before she gets the call from us.
It's funny because they send out these opening packages with all the escrow instructions, the title reports and everything. And I remember another escrow company, like my first office that I was at, the escrow company there saw me that I was meeting with the client and going over the stuff. And they're like, you actually read those? You actually go over that with your client? They're like, you're the only agent in this office that does that. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't need to be reading all those papers. And they're like, well, you do, but you're the only one who actually does it. And I remember kind of being floored by that, because it never occurred to me, like, why would I not read this stuff? I mean, this is my client's biggest investment. Why would I not read this paperwork? And if something's going to go wrong, or because guys, escrows are human too, right? And I've seen escrow instructions go out with some typos on them, or maybe there's like one piece missing, or some things that were just needed to be corrected. And I need to read the instructions to see that it's wrong. So
yeah, and you know what? I think that is so important that you have an agent that works with you like that. Someone who can review those papers to actually go through them. Because if that escrow packet is done correctly at the end of closing, it's just much smoother.
Yep.
No corrections. Everything is up front, and it works much better. So
yep.
kudos to anyone who gets to work with you, because I do know how much attention you do pay to each file.
Thank you. And if you'd like to get to work with me, give me a call, 1-800-440-7566. I am taking new clients at this time. I'm happy to talk to you if you just have questions, or you're just trying to figure out, you know, whether or not you want to sell, whether or not you want to buy, you're thinking of investing, you're thinking of anything, you got more escrow questions, give me a call, or look me up on Instagram, CYRENE Properties. I'm happy to answer any questions. You know, one of the things that I get asked a lot from clients is, you know, when they go to buy a property, or sell a property, they're going to have closing costs.
Correct.
Right? And in our contracts, you know, I always tell them to kind of like estimate around 2% of the purchase price for their total closing costs for a buyer. For a seller, I'd say around 7%, take off the top. So the closing costs, a lot of times the questions I get is on the purchase contract, you know, it breaks it down, like who's escrow, who's going to pay escrow, who's going to pay title, who's going to pay for the home warranty, who's going to pay for each thing. And a lot of times people ask me, well, is this in addition to my closing costs? But it is not. And escrow is going to provide you with that net sheet that's going to break down what all the different costs are. They also do prorations. So can you kind of explain to me what prorations are and why you do them, and why it's hard to like estimate, like for me to estimate exactly what they will do because of the way that taxes work?
Yeah, let's talk about that. That's a sensitive subject.
Taxes.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people take a look at it and they go, oh my God, but I've already paid the taxes until February and you want me to move out in December. Well, guess what? We actually get money back from the buyer to pay for those days that you're not living there for those taxes. And that's what a proration is.
Well, I'm going to stop you just 1 second, because what I find what a lot of clients don't understand about the taxes is that they're not paid monthly.
Correct.
They're paid biannually. So when you pay taxes, you're paying 6 months up front. Well, if you sell your house in month 3, you've already paid the 6 months.
Correct.
So their job is to prorate 3 months, credit you, and debit the buyer.
Yeah, so nobody ever pays for somebody else. Same thing with the homeowners association. Sometimes you paid your annual rate for it and you're leaving halfway through the year. We prorate that as well. So there's a lot of different prorations that may come into place depending on your home.
Yep. And do you prorate interest?
We do. We do prorate interest. And also, just to make sure that we explain this, a lot of people say, oh, well, that's what my taxes are going to be. We only show you the current taxes. We don't show you the increased taxes. So you will get a supplement in tax. I just want to explain that because they always call us saying, you didn't tell me my taxes were going to be. So we want to make sure that you understand what you're looking at as a current tax rate, not your new tax rate that will come out with a supplement.
Okay, so I'm just going to stop you real quick
Yeah.
again and explain really quick.
Please.
So people pay property taxes based on the price they bought the house for. And in LA County, you can count for about 1.25% of the price to be your taxes. But let's say Grandma Sue bought the house 100 years ago and she paid $500 for it. Well, now you're paying $1,000 for it. So what Grandma Sue was paying on the taxes is going to be based on that amount. What you're going to be paying is going to be based on another amount. And what happens is escrow is prorating the old amount. Your lender, though, if you have an impound, is going to calculate the new amount, and they might want 6 months in advance. However, even though all that is happening and you have the closing costs broken down for you, you're going to get a bill later called a supplemental tax bill. And the supplemental tax bill is the difference, right? So just because you already paid, here's the thing, escrow, title, the lender, everybody knows about your taxes and what's going on and what you're supposed to be paying, right? But the assessor's office doesn't know and doesn't care that you have a deal to impound your taxes with the lender. And they don't know that it was prorated. They don't know any of that. So the assessor's office, when it gets recorded, what they know is that, oh, there's a new value. It triggered a new value. So there's a new tax that's owed. So there is a gap there where they'll say, okay, well, this is the difference that is owed. And you'll get a supplemental tax bill and you'll forget all of that. I usually explain to my clients about 3 times during the process of buying a house that they're going to get this bill. And when they get it, what should you do? If you have an impound account, if your lender is impounding taxes for you, you call your lender and ask them if they're able to disperse to pay for that, if there's enough money in the impound account. If the lender can't or won't, then you need to pay the bill. You have to pay it. Do not get a tax lien on your house. You do not want that. So you need to pay the bill, but pay it because you have that impound account. The lender's going to keep putting it in there, and they're going to disperse to the tax assessor's office twice a year for you. At the end of the year, everything will true up and you'll likely get a check back.
Yeah.
So I hope that kind of I do a good job of simplifying that.
You did. And sometimes I forget because I'm constantly talking with real estate agents. I forget that you have to simplify it. You did a great job. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I was surprised too when I got that first bill.
Yeah.
So if you could say what is the one most important thing that people should think about when because I talk a lot, right? You know me, I talk a lot. So, and I know that what I think is the most important thing when buying or selling a house. I would like to hear from you. What is the most important thing that someone should think of when buying or selling a house? I know you've been in this business for a long time. Since,
It may sound like you're paying me, but I'm going to tell you, it
I'm
is
paying you.
having
No, I'm just kidding.
the right realtor working for you. The one person who can negotiate, the one person who can forecast if a problem's coming. It really is to have the right person. So if you get a chance to work with Serene, lucky you, because she is amazing. She is nonstop, and she really is truly amazing. So it is a realtor that is the most important thing.
Well, thank you. And yes, lucky you. I am taking, yeah, so humble. But yes, I am taking new clients now. You can give me a call, 1-800-440-7566. You can find me on Instagram, CYRENE Properties. Check out our YouTube channel. We have a podcast. Thank you so much, Ide, for coming in.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Make it a great day, guys.
All right, bye.